Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess on that token, we're like into the podcast again.
Yay.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Locked Doors, I don't know, a way that we're trying to summon a demon to do our projects for us. So it's a long-term magical spell. I am Scott Paladin.
And I'm Sam Stark.
I'm Jack. I guess it's weird to introduce myself that way when I don't use my full legal whole ass front and back name.
You're like Madonna though. You're just
it's a mononym.
Yeah.
I've tried attaching a last name to the name Jack, and it always sounds weird and fucked up. So I'm just Jack, I
don't know. Jack seems good.
Okay. Anyway, hi everyone.
You've got the person name and then the brand name, which is a smart way to do it.
Yes.
I've just got full brand name. It's
hello,
I'm Scott
brand.
Paladin. So the point where people are like,
hello, I'm Scott Paladin.
Paladin. Okay. All right, let's check in on the reason why ostensibly we're here. Yeah. So I am continuing work on episode 4, I think it is, that I'm technically on. It's the fuck up episode, although I haven't gotten to the fuck up part yet. At the moment, I'm still stuck in sexy sparring time between my protagonists.
What do you mean stuck? You mean reveling in, enjoying rolling in sexy sparring time?
Yeah, it's going good. I'm not making the kind of progress that I gotta stop using this language. It's going slowly, but it's going, so that's good.
Going is the important part.
Yeah. So how are y'all doing?
Hey Sam, how are you doing?
I am actively not working on S1E20.
Gotcha.
Last I heard, you were actively in hell.
Yeah, kind of. But in a good hell, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I had a period. I had a period of 2 weeks where I was really in it, and I was feeling really strong. I had really strong feelings about a bunch of really specific things about the characters. I'm in S1E20, just for clarification.
Okay.
And I was really feeling good about it. I was doing the marinating in my head thing that has to happen a bit before you write stuff. Yeah. And it was feeling really good. And then I got another job, and that's 5 jobs.
Bro.
And it's just too many jobs. And it's actually pretty cool because it's basically iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
It's not iHeartRadio, but it's the equivalent of iHeartRadio, but for podcasts. And it's
cool.
It's national, and so it plays in a lot of different countries and stuff. But anyway, I'm basically just narrating a book for them, but every episode is a chapter of the book. Mm-hmm. So, but that's continuous work every week. So it's an actual job with hours and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually I'm having I'm having an emotional time because I have to go into tomorrow. I'm going to go into my I still physically go to work job, which is an accounting job that I guess is technically my side job now because I go very kind of sporadically. But I have to go in there and I have to tell my boss, my amazing, wonderful boss of almost 8 years, that I can't do this job anymore because I have so much voice stuff to do. So tomorrow I'm going to not quit, but I'm going to put in my notice for my last non-voice job.
Wow.
Well, simultaneous, because it sounded like you're a bit worried about it. So simultaneous, congratulations and condolences.
Yeah,
it's always tough,
I'm not worried about it, but I really like my boss, and I really like working for him, and I feel like so many people just have these terrible boss-employee relationships, and they dislike their jobs, or their jobs are really hard on them. My job has been, for the last 7.5 whatever years, has been so accommodating and so wonderful. They were so kind to me when I had my second kid. They are always really hey, I have to take my kid to the, she threw up in class and now I have to take her to the doctor, blah, blah, blah. They're always yeah, sure, go do it. They've just been so wonderful.
Nice.
And I feel like I'm just throwing away this wonderful thing, but even though my boss has on several occasions said, just let me know as soon as you don't have time and you have to. He's, again, been extremely just understanding and caring and wonderful. And I'm I don't want to get rid of that, but I just don't have, there are not enough hours in the week.
There's not enough Sam.
Physically.
Yeah. You need to clone yourself.
I'm only one person. Oh my God.
Yeah. Literally.
Well, still, that is cool. I mean, that is overall very cool, though.
Yes, it
I
is.
mean, that's okay. Jack, do you have an update at all?
I'm still trying to put furniture in my house. That's
Yeah.
my update. But yeah, like because we are in the position where Sam is super busy and I have to have Sam's homework to do my homework. We're chilling until Sam's life calms down.
You have a curtain though. It looks like you have a curtain.
I have a
thing.
blanket draped over a this. I'm in a closet, listeners. Hello. I'm literally sitting in a closet.
Podcasting tradition. That's where podcasts are born.
There are like fuzzy blankets draped around two sides of this closet from the like clothing bar that's in here. But at some point I want to put like foam panels or something on this other wall and probably on the door behind me as well. So this should be a little more sound treated in the future.
Excellent. That's wonderful.
Well,
I can see there's foam in your space, Sam.
Yeah, mine is also.
Sam is super professional. Yeah.
But it's also a closet. So like if I close this, I am completely surrounded by foam paneling, but as you can see, like right here, this is the door underneath the slidey door. But it does a fantastic job for, looking professional when I have to like be on camera for other people, but also it does really good sound wise, and I don't need like a big studio or anything. So.
Right.
That's one of my like. Someday I'll like properly build a little sound booth or something.
Yeah, I'll have $5,000 for a booth junkie booth.
Yeah.
I've got like this room mostly gets by on the fact that like these shelves behind me all deflect sound, and then I've got let me see here.
The good shit.
So listeners, because you can't see what's going on right now. He's still talking.
Moving blankets and IKEA sheep skins. Do a great job.
So for the listeners who can't see what's going on, when we look at Scott, it actually kind of looks like he's in like the cargo bay of a spaceship. It looks like he's like a gray wall. It looks like it's metal. So and then there's just tools and shit, and there's lights. It's awesome.
It's the room in Mass Effect 2 on the Normandy where is it fucking Jacob who hangs out in there?
Yeah, it's Jacob.
Yes.
That's what that wall looks like to
me. And then what he just showed us, like he turned his camera around. He's got like some nice foam paneling and some of that sheepskin, like, that cool. Yeah. And so one side looks like a Mass Effect ship and the other side looks like a sound booth. It's great.
I love that for you.
Oh, man. Yeah. Except instead of guns on the wall, I've got keyboards because I'm one of those. I'm one of those guys.
Racks of keyboards.
What is the pink light?
It's just a pink light.
It's just a pink light. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a pink light. It's one of those Edison bulbs. I can change the color on it. What are you?
What? Oh my gosh! Now it's orange. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm sitting on lawn podcasts, I just like sit and futz with my like color lights and see if I can distract people.
The purple, the red, and the orange make it look more like a ship than the blue does, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my God! There's more than one. There's just lights everywhere.
Wow, that's so sick.
Okay, so I did have a podcast or like an artistic creation question for the two of you.
Oh, bless.
I thought you guys might have thoughts. So, when you are writing specifically, like you're trying to create content, I hate the word content. I can't believe I used it. If you're trying to create a story, right? In that process, does that color your relationships with the things that you consume, that you go out and like look for? So like if you are working in the sci-fi realm, do you want to then read and watch a bunch of sci-fi? If you are, or would you prefer to avoid it? Or does it like, how do you guys feel about like the things related to the thing that you're working on?
I have a pretty specific answer if it's okay if I go.
Please do.
Please go, because I'm still thinking.
Yeah.
So for a long time, I was just writing. Like before I did audiobooks and stuff like that, I was writing books, and before that I was writing fan fiction, and then I was writing books, and then I was writing screenplays and stuff. But anyway, if I were to like one day be like, I have an idea for a sci-fi. This is something that would never happen, by the way. This is an example. I have an idea for a sci-fi novel. And then I would just consume a bunch of sci-fi stuff, but I would try really, really hard to really vary it. Like I would go from Lynch's Dune to like The Expanse to like something really super urban. Like I would try to get as much, and I'd watch like old 70s sci-fi because like back in the day when like sci-fi was like they have like a brick that they're holding and communicating with each other, or like they don't even think about like you don't have to have a panel for a computer, you can like carry it around. That's really cool because that kind of stuff is like the first like the births of a lot of things. And like when you go back and you see like other people inventing things and coming up with new things whole cloth, for me personally, it really kind of tries to make me think further and further outside the box. But like I always try to kind of immerse myself in the media that I'm trying to create. And and specifically for me, I don't suggest that everybody do this. I watch a shit ton of anime, like a whole bunch, because that's always kind of the feeling that I go for. I love a lot of the tropes of anime in general, and once I finally do get some As in West written, you'll see it. You'll be like, oh my god, that's so anime, Sam. What are you doing?
No, I will love that for me personally.
But I try to surround myself in it.
So that process continues all the way through. You said when you get the idea, you get it. But is that something you just like would continue through during the writing process as well?
Actually, no. That's why it's kind of a specific answer.
Yeah. That's.
I immerse myself in it when I'm doing that sort of percolating part of it, where it's in my brain, it's not yet on the paper, and then once I am okay, I'm definitely at the phase where I can start writing stuff, I stop. I just completely stop because I need all the ideas in my head, but I don't want it to like dictate what I do. And so I will actively avoid it when I'm starting to write. So I will switch genres of what I am reading, what I am watching when I am writing.
Gotcha.
Interesting.
Okay. Jack, do you have thoughts?
I think my thoughts are that I have paid no specific attention to this ever. Like, anytime I'm making something, I feel like it's such a like, at least in my forebrain, it's such a separate item from the stuff that I'm consuming that I really don't think about how the things I'm consuming are impacting the things that I'm creating. Like, at least in the front of my brain. Probably in the back of my brain, there are like connections being made that I don't realize are happening, but I'm not doing like active thinking about it the way that Sam just described.
Yeah. I feel somewhat akin to Sam in this, in that although I don't do, well, I don't know. I have both drives, and I just don't have it as clearly defined the way that you do, Sam, where like I both want to like see what is there and what is out there and how other people do things. And yet also like, it's like, how about this? What it is I want to see other versions of a story I want to tell, but I don't want to see other things in the genre I want to work in, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting.
Like, broadly speaking, I want to be very well read in sci-fi and very well watched in sci-fi. But if I'm writing sci-fi, then I don't want to go read other things with that aesthetic. But if I'm telling a love story in sci-fi, I will go look for other love stories in other genres and see what those look like.
Yeah.
Because that's where I'm going to learn about how other authors do the same like emotional impacts and like how they do their characters and stories. Whereas like what somebody else's spaceship design looks like isn't going to help me in the writing process. And like generally speaking, I'm especially lately as I in the last couple of years, I've become very introspective about like what art means and stuff like that. I think
Scott
both
with his
of you
head in his hands like, ugh, what art means.
Yeah. But like, I think both of you got some of that when we did Let's Get Weird About most recently, where it was like, what can we take away from these works? And that's that whole entire season was me just doing this on purpose. And so, like I've become very interested in like versions of the story that I want to tell, but not necessarily the genre conventions of what I want to tell. Like when I started working on It Takes a Wolf, I literally sat down and was like, okay, every fucking werewolf movie in the world. Let me take a look at them. And I started to go through them, and I was like, you know what? There's nothing in here that I want. Like there's literally
there's nothing here for me.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, pretty much. Like there just isn't. I'm sure there's somebody out there telling similar stories with. I mean, like actually, the closest thing is I know the crap. What was that Telltale game based off of the comics?
Yes. I know what you're talking about. What's it called? I did a presentation on this in college. Fuck.
Yeah. Big Wolf is the name of the character.
I was like, big something.
Yeah. What's the fucking name of the game?
This is gonna drive me up the wall. Somebody needs
something
to Google
Wolf.
This, like,
something.
right
Isn't it based off of Fables?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But what's the name? I haven't read that. So
I for real wrote a whole paper on this in college.
The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf
Among Us.
Yeah. That's probably the closest thing. But like. Anyway, so that.
Oh, I see those vibes actually. Now that you say that, Scott, I can see the influence there. I see that now. Like
it's
now that
it's there. There's some of that. I played like a billion years ago or whatever. But like the like so there are examples of it, but I'm not gonna go look for like that's not what I would need. I don't need the wolf parts of that. I can do that myself. But like what I did do was read a bunch of Chandler. I went and read like everything I could get my hands on from Raymond Chandler, and then started looking at other authors. And the weird thing is that like Raymond Chandler, he is the best of the hard-boiled detective novel. Like he's like the progenitor,
yes.
you know?
Yes.
He's the guy. And as far as I can tell, fucking nobody else hits exactly what I want out of what, like he brings something to that genre that I really, really love. That no other author that I have found does in that genre. So like I went to Dashiell Hammett, I went to several others, and I was just like, none of this has got that juice. I want that juice. Where's the juice? So I'm thrashing around looking for other stuff. But yeah, it's not like I don't want like the trappings of it. I want like the story beats and like the heart and stuff. It's really interesting. So
is it different when you like, let's say, okay, so there's two ways that I kind of come upon an idea, I guess. And one of them is it'll slowly kind of creep up on me, and I'll be like, man, that's kind of a cool idea. For example, I'm gonna just put my whole ass out here for a second.
Put your ass out here.
That's the whole
what
podcast.
This podcast is for.
Yeah. Okay. So
or unfiltered here.
So I do panels at NorwestCon, which is like our literary, cool, sci-fi fantasy convention here in Washington State. And I had a panel with a bunch of incredible authors, and I was the moderator, and they were basically we got a bunch of like first pages of novels. And I would read them, for the panel, and then they would like do a quick like minute. A clinic on it basically. And we got a couple of these sci-fi ones that were pretty cool, and I kept thinking in my head, I was like, man, I can never write sci-fi, this is crazy. And Nancy Kress, I'm just gonna call her out, I'm sorry. Nancy Kress was on the panel. Nancy Kress is a very good writer. She writes really cool sci-fi stuff, but she's very traditional. Yeah. And she only writes like traditional stuff. She's very set in her ways. And somebody in the crowd, I don't remember how the conversation got this way, but somebody in the crowd was like, but what if you did like Bridgerton in space? And like Nancy Kress had a fucking aneurysm. Like she got like mad on the panel. But then me on the other end of this panel was like, oh, that's a great idea.
You're on.
Oh my God. So I've been thinking like so slowly over the past couple of years, I've been like, what if I wanted to do Bridgerton on like a spaceship? What if it was like planets instead of like,
I would
whatever.
love that shit.
And a lot of people have been like...
I love Mobile Suit Firebrands.
Exactly. And a lot of people have been like, that's a great idea. That's really fun. And I was like, okay, so I've been slowly, like, I've been consuming Bridgerton like it's air, like it's oxygen. It's just a stupid show and I love it. And I have begrudgingly, very slowly and painfully been reading the books. God damn it.
Wow.
No. They're
You're
just... Brave. The audience, the show, so much better than the books. Anyway, but I love Regency. I like that romance Regency thing. I love Pride and Prejudice, that kind of thing. And but again, I'm like, I gotta watch a lot of sci-fi. I gotta read a lot of sci-fi. And so that's like one way that I go about a story. Yeah. And then the other way, that was a long way around to get to this question. But Do you find that it's different when something like that happens where it's like a long time of thinking about what you want to do, as opposed to you're driving down the street and you see, a certain looking dog and you're like, oh, that dog's so fucking cute, I can write a story about it really fast. Like, oh, I'm done with the percolating, it's ready to go, I have a story idea in my head, I'm gonna go write it. Do you still do like a I want to consume media thing, or is it different when it's like a shorter processing time? Do you still during the process?
The answer is that when I've had those moments that you're talking about where you're like, I'm just gonna write a story, like I just have this thing, I'm just gonna do it. To that, there like that process is so short that I don't have time to like it consumes my life, and I don't do anything else. I just like do it. Yeah. And then the other process where it's like I have a thing and I like want to do it and I have intentionality and I like have a plan. Those are so long and laborious and like involve like long periods where I like want to bury my head in the sand, which is like where I'm at right now, or like that like I don't even know what's like, but like that's the only time that I'm talking about. That's when I come about on the other stuff, because the other ones are just like that's a hyperfixation version of the story writing process versus the like, oh, I have an idea, here are the things I want to include, I'm just gonna start chugging away at it. I never the like it feels much more deliberate, and that's when I start thinking about things like, well, what about the media that I'm consuming, can I turn that into homework? That's when that comes into play. So cool. For sure the I have a plan, I'm going to do it on purpose.
I guess I've never just had the so fast I didn't have time for research.
That's okay. You know what? I just realized.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. The time that I do think intentionally about consuming media that's related to the project I'm working on is if I'm working in a genre or style that's not as comfortable or familiar to me, then I will specifically go find, like, I will do homework about, like, whatever genre I'm trying to work in that's not a genre that I already know all the tropes and trappings of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because there are tropes and genres that I already feel so comfortable around that I'm like, I know what I like. I've already consumed a lot of the media that has the stuff I like for this. But if it is something that I don't know much about, I'll have to be like, okay, I better go actually like go sit down and watch a, noir movie or whatever, because I don't know enough about noir.
It's really interesting because there's we're touching briefly on a distinction that I've been thinking about for a long time, which is the distinction between aesthetic and genre, where like noir is a genre in my head, where it's like this is about hard-boiled crime, crime and murders and detectives and city streets and all that stuff. But like you can tell a noir story in cyberpunk, you could do it in fantasy, you can do it in regular old everything. Like that's whereas like the aesthetic is the coat that the story wears, where the genre is like what the story is.
The flavor text.
And it's one of those things. And it's one of those things where I think about this a lot because everybody conflates the two when they talk about sci-fi and fantasy, where like fantasy is almost always just the aesthetic, that like what you're really telling is a different kind of story. There's very few like fantasy stories until you get to like fairy tales, I guess. I don't know. But like when you tell me, if you said, oh, I'm writing a fantasy book, that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, okay, there's probably going to be swords, I guess, is like maybe the thing I can guess.
But there's also like urban fantasy where there aren't swords.
So like that's like maybe there will be swords, but like if you said, oh, I'm writing a romance, I know a whole bunch about what that story actually is. And so I guess when I was talking about like things I don't want to experience the aesthetic, but I will look for the kind of genre, the story genre of what I'm looking for.
Sure.
In that way. And it's one of those things when you're thinking about like because both of you talk about like, oh, if I was writing in a genre I know nothing about, like sci-fi, when you say sci-fi is a genre you know nothing about, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Like sci-fi isn't a genre. Sci-fi sometimes can tell you things about the story. Like there are a lot of like, to me, a sci-fi story, like the genre of sci-fi, is when there is some sort of scientific speculative fiction principle that is intrinsic to the story, a like time travel or time dilation or cloning or robotics. Like there's something that's like built into the story itself. And then sometimes sci-fi is Star Wars.
Which is just fantasy in space.
Yeah, which is straight up, and that sometimes the distinction is like space opera is the thing that people will say, but like there are a lot. I mean, like Gundam is like that too. Like Gundam is, it doesn't tell you anything about what those are high. Those really are like a high romance, like romance in the old distinction, like the Byronic romance, not like
courtly romance,
not like two people want to fuck. I mean, they do want to fuck all the time in Gundam, but like it's.
Thank you for saying that out loud.
Witch from Mercury was so good. So good.
But yeah, like there's this, it's an interesting distinction that I feel like the common language we use talking about stories kind of lets us down in that regard. And I also think there's something really valuable. It's harder to do when you're sort of an analytical or non-confident writer, but there actually is something really valuable to the naive approach to something where you're like, I'm going to do sci-fi. I don't know anything about sci-fi. I'm just going to do it. And what you will end up doing is your version of it more than like the conventional version of it. And there's something really, really cool about when somebody does that. It's hard to do if you're like, to have the balls to do it. If you've got the little cop inside your head telling you your writing's going to be bad, if you've got the little critic who's like telling you,
tell the story.
You already know the internet comments that are going to happen when you put it out, and they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't do such and such because that was so I'm not like saying like I understand like if to ignore all of the people who have all of those voices in your head is like not non-trivial. It is hard to do.
Yeah.
But there is something really cool about when somebody is just like, I'm just going to do a thing. I've often described that as outsider art, but I think naive is a better term for it. Where somebody is just like, I don't know the rules. I'm just going to start just do it.
Just going to go for it.
They will, artists in that way will often do things that like nobody else would do. And that's kind of, like I said, there's value in that.
Totally.
I'm not even sure what part of sci-fi I'm afraid of because I grew up on sci-fi. Like my parents are huge sci-fi nerds. Like we've had sci-fi like my entire life. And like if somebody asked me, "Hey, can you write a sci-fi horror?" I'd be like, "I'm there. I got you." Like spaceship, scary alien or ghost,
spaceship
or contagion. Yeah, that's easy. And like again, I'm going to try Bridgerton in space. So I mean, whatever. And like something like Star Wars or Dune, where it's more like a space opera and the science of it's kind of, hand wavy. Like I feel like I could do something like that because it is just epic fantasy. It's just you have spaceships and laser swords.
Yeah, it's an aesthetic. Yeah,
I think it's specifically for me now that I'm thinking about it. When I watch people creating things in the breathing space Discord and they're talking about like how the ship's HVAC works and like the names of like the naming conventions of some of the sci-fi things, I'm like, I think that's what it is. I don't know how to name anything in sci-fi. I don't know how to I would have to tell the story from the viewpoint of somebody that is like the opposite of an engineer, like a botanist that's on a ship that knows dick all about what the thing is they're on right now. The science of it scares the crap out of me.
But like that's like you say that, and my immediate thought is that fucking whips. That's awesome. I love that idea.
That is a really fun idea.
Like the idea of somebody who's just like in a sci-fi world, and to them they're just like, I don't know. That's basically magic. But
computer go burr. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But like I kind of love that. That taking that approach. From if you're talking about like Bridgerton or I don't know Bridgerton specifically, but I do know vaguely the like romance.
Pride and Prejudice, right?
Sort of like,
it's the same thing.
Highfalutin,
It's Pride and Prejudice but hornier.
Yep.
But like,
I mean, well, not really, but whatever.
If you're being real,
Pride and Prejudice is pretty fucking horny. But taking that as like, oh, these are all rich people who don't know how anything works because they're all separated from it. And to them, it is just an aesthetic is actually a really cool approach to that idea.
Yeah, that's true.
That I really love. Like, when you're approaching things like that, when you're saying like, oh, I want to take it from this angle or whatever. Sometimes it's just a matter of like thinking like, oh, is this actually a problem or not? Because it doesn't sound like it really would be a problem for that particular idea to me.
You know how in Downton Abbey, all of the like people upstairs and the people downstairs have two totally different spheres of knowledge about like how the world works. I feel like that would be so easy to like transpose onto a spaceship where the like crew of the ship understands how the ship runs and like the systems within it, and the people who are passengers are just like, I don't know, it gets us a place, like whatever. I don't fucking know.
I mean, I don't know how a plane works. I've been on a plane a whole bunch. I don't know how it works, and I don't.
Same. I don't know fucking jack shit about how planes. Go.
And a train. I don't know how a train works either. And I've been on a train twice in my life. So
yeah, I mean, like it's one of those things where, again, like sci-fi. It sounds like from your approach, you've got this whole other genre of story that you want to tell, and you're just going to use sci-fi as the trappings for it, which sounds great. Like that's great. There's nothing. Like, not just is there nothing wrong with it. That whips. That's Star Wars. That's
that's true.
Any number of sci-fi properties that you quote unquote sci-fi properties. That's all of Marvel now, which uses sci-fi trappings, right. But like has nothing to do with science ever. They don't care. You know.
Yes.
No.
And that's fine. It's one of those things where the guiding principle is only that like you only need something to like be internally consistent. It doesn't need to be correct as long as you explain it and like then kind of follow those rules as much as that matters, you know? Like if it's important to the story that, I don't know, ship thrusters work a certain way, then like you have to explain that enough that people understand why the story is working that way, and then keep to it because you've explained that those are the rules, and therefore, you know, that creates and or solves problems within the story for you to resolve and all that stuff. But if like the answer is that like ships move at the speed of plot, then like you just
which they kind of do in Breathing Space, and we've just decided that's fine.
My brain for a second was like, wait a minute, how fast is plot? What is plot? Like I literally went like, wait, hold on.
What unit of measurement? Parsec ass? Like what are you talking about?
They move at the speed whatever is convenient for the story.
Yeah. There's one other like facet of it that I'm just kind of thinking about right now is I have such a good grasp of quote unquote fantasy stuff because there's so many staples of the genre. There's so many like when somebody starts talking about a magic system, I could talk for hours about a magic system. I can like get in there and be like, you know, is it word based? Is it thought based? Is it, you know, blah blah blah. Like we could talk about magic forever.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah. And like things in a like medieval type or steampunk fantasy world that has magic, whatever, has gods, blah blah blah. I could really get in there because I've played so many fantasy video games. I've read so much fantasy books, blah blah blah. But like, if somebody were to like, okay, let's do a sci-fi, da da da. You have to. I personally have to start thinking because again, I like really getting into the nitty gritty and understanding the world that I'm writing in, and I think about like, okay, now I got to think about like how do they communicate? What is the energy source? Like I got to start like I do with magic. You know, like magic makes the world go around. I got to think about like energy and things like that for like more science. You see what I'm saying? Like there's like bits of the world, like really simple stuff. Like, are we still wearing underwear? Like, you know, that kind of stuff. Like I gotta think about all like the actual day-to-day crap. And it just, it blows my mind.
There's an instinct that I think has grown up over the last, like sci-fi has gotten a lot quote unquote harder in the last 20 years. The difference between hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi, where like soft sci-fi is like, you know, aliens invade from Mars, pew pew lasers, you know, flying saucers stuff. And then like hard sci-fi is more like The Expanse, where like the fact that, you know, or The Martian, where like, you're going to talk about how oxygen is produced in like this environment. And like the fact that we need to go mine water ice from, you know, asteroid or from comets and stuff. Like that's a whole like, but the truth is that like, again, you only need to have answers to stuff insofar as they're relevant to the story that you're telling, right? So like the question of like, do they have underwear or not is, I mean, if that's relevant to the story, I mean like maybe. It can be interesting. And then also what can be cool, this is often the way things work within Breathing Space, is that we think about the world. We're like, well, what happens when this such and such event happens. What happens? What would we do? What would it look like to live on this location? You know, and stuff like that, and sort of think about it. And then from that will come cool ideas that we then talk about and bring into the setting, and they become relevant. You know, the example I'll use is Whale Falls, where ship falls, where like we're talking about like, well, you know the big salvaging and stuff. I was like, well, you know, there'll be big ships that like we'd set up all these little salvaging crews wouldn't be able to handle. Oh, hey, I remember from Wikipedia diving on about Whale Falls that I'm like, oh, this would be a cool thing if it was like a big thing. It becomes a cultural event that mimics other things that we've seen elsewhere in the real world. Let's kind of think about that. And then it becomes an interesting plot element, or not plot element, but setting element.
Super banger setting element.
Relevant. Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool, but it was only... It emerged from other thoughts that we had, but we've had this is a very inefficient way to do the stuff because we have tons of those conversations that never result in anything. Like I have an entire like conlang sign language thing that I created. The very first thing I created for Breathing Space was like Belter sign. That's this whole thing about like you can it's a sign language you can also write based off of the movements and stuff, and it was interesting, but then we're making an audio drama. There's no room for it. It's
except we brought it in season 4.
I did actual sign language in the booth, but it wasn't Belter sign. It was actual sign language,
actual American sign language. You can hear Sam's Belter sign in
so like, but like that sat around. That idea did not. But so like it is really interesting to do that kind of stuff. Where like I'm just going to world build and see where I come from it. That's a fascinating way to do storytelling, but you don't have to do it. You could just like plot your course and then fill in where you need to, and then not like a Wile E. Coyote throwing down the train tracks just as the cart goes over them. You know, that's totally fine too. I know that like saying, oh, that's fine, you don't have to worry about it, doesn't alleviate the like anxiety of worrying about it. I'm not under that delusion, but nonetheless, like it is totally cool. You can do it. And for anybody listening who's worried about it, like, don't worry. The internet comments will never be sated. So don't let them rule your head like a cop.
Yeah, you can't live your life by the internet comments. What I will say, though, is whenever you do bother to do those little pieces of world building that you don't think are going to matter, they can make the world feel like it has a lot more depth just because you look into some corner where you weren't expecting to see anything in particular, and there's something there that you thought about, and it adds, like, meaning and flavor to your setting.
In that way, it's a little bit of a magic trick, because if you mention 10 things and then explain 2 of them, then everybody thinks that you've thought about all 10 and have answers for all 10 when you don't necessarily do it. So it can be a really good magic trick to making it seem like a more fleshed out world.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, okay, we could keep talking forever, but this is my lunch break and I haven't eaten.
Oh no,
so I gotta go.
I keep forgetting. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We just have engaging conversations because y'all are both cool people and I like talking to you. So like, it's not a.
We like talking to you too.
We're making heart signals, everybody.
Yeah, we're making heart
signals.
So
sorry.
We will continue the convention format here. Do you guys want to set goals for the next 2 weeks?
I have plenty of goals, but they don't involve anything that we talk about on this show. Okay. So
that's fine. And I guess that means that Jack's on holding pattern for y'all too.
My goal is Sam's life calm down. ASAP.
We're gonna have to clone Sam at this point, just so that
we need 8 of him.
We have time to do this. On my token, I'm gonna keep chugging away at season or episode 4. On that note, I have come to I'm slowly coming to the realization that I will probably start over, like literally with blank pages on every episode, and then only pull in the things I want. Mm-hmm. And that has made me feel like, that makes me farther away from having this thing all done. But know you guys have been seeing the Wolf Den, where I've been typing out like big world building stuff. And it's one of those things where like when you think of an idea and you're like, oh crap, I wish I thought of that 4 episodes ago. Well, I haven't put any of that shit out, so I can go back and fix all 4 episodes now.
Yeah,
so
the nice thing about
I'm gonna have to
writing
do that now.
A full like draft through and then starting over with the blank page is you have the option to cherry pick only the juiciest shit from your first draft and add it in earlier in the show where it makes sense to do that. And then
so
you'll look like you were so smart and planned way ahead.
So I'm going to be less concerned with the like nitty gritty of any particular episode now, and just sort of like I want to have a version of everything. And hopefully that will make me, hopefully that will allow me to work a little more quickly with regards to that, because I can just like get it down, just do it, fucking do it.
Yeah, just slap it down, and then you can rearrange.
So I'm going to continue on that, and we'll check back in 2 weeks. So bye-bye, audience.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for Behind the Locked Doors, a library of cursed knowledge, production, podcast thing, I don't know. If you are interested in any of these projects, you can head over to library.horse, which will eventually redirect to a webpage once I make it, If you want to support the podcast, we do have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/cursed knowledge. See y'all next week. No, wait. See y'all in 2 weeks.